Alright guys, welcome back to another one. So today I want to talk a little bit about a pretty problematic issue that is going on within a certain sector of Square Enix. It's something that we have touched upon lightly in the past, but today I want to dive into it a little bit deeper. We recently got the announcement that Final Fantasy Brave Exvius War of the Visions is shutting down at the end of May this year. Now, this is a Final Fantasy mobile game that started back in 2019, so honestly speaking, that's a pretty good run. Yeah, it's about 6 or so years right there of the service, but you can't help but feel whenever you see a Square Enix mobile game getting shut down, you think to yourself, well, that's just another one being added to the ever-growing cemetery of Square Enix mobile phone games. And every single time I see this happen, it makes it harder and harder to actually put trust and faith into a brand new Square Enix mobile phone game. And it's important for me and for you guys too, as most of us have interest in Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. I don't tend to really play mobile games all too often, but of course Kingdom Hearts is an exception, and I am looking at putting a lot of investment into Missing Link whenever it decides to release. Who knows? We're coming up like 5 months since the delay, and still we have no idea when this game is coming out. Pretty ridiculous. However, over the past few years, Square Enix have been axing, dare I even say murdering, a good bulk of their mobile game services, where now they don't actually have too many ongoing services currently available. Right here, this is the current active Square Enix mobile games that are running right now. It's still, a handful, but it's not overly too many. And you guys should know that the mobile games sector of Square Enix is actually one of their most profitable. Most of the time, it's more profitable than their HD games sector. And this is because of the nature of mobile phone games, considering that they are live services and generally gacha related. It means that these games are generating consistent revenue. This is why Square Enix keep pumping these things out, because they're turning over more money than their normal HD games that require so many resources and a big budget to be put into them to see a decent return back, whereas that's not so much the case with mobile phone games. Now, we all know that the management of the mobile phone sector of Square Enix isn't that great. Now, you have to keep in mind that a mobile phone game service generally ends because it's not turning over a profit. It's just not worth the developers spending their time constantly updating these games, as they're not seeing enough money back. On rare occasions though, there are other circumstances that lead to a service's end, and this can sometimes be in regards to the narrative. The narrative basically gets to the end point, there's no more story to tell, so there's no other reason but to close the service. Looking at mainly Nier Reincarnation and Kingdom Hearts Union Cross, I still believe those games were profitable towards the end of their life cycle, but in regards to the story, there was no story left to tell. It only made sense for the service to end. While I know that over the past few years, Square Enix have been ending their mobile phone games, I didn't quite realize how many mobile phone games have been axed over the past 10 plus years. So throughout the 2010s, this is when gacha mobile phone games really started to become a big popular thing, and Square Enix jumped into this hardcore. I knew that we were probably looking at about like 15 to 20 games possibly being killed off. But in fact, looking into it, I literally spent an entire afternoon looking at all of the mobile game services that Square Enix have created and have shortly then after stopped, and it comes to a staggering 75. So throughout 2010 and leading up to now, there are 75 total games that Square has attempted to create and has ended service. Now, some of these games were alive for quite a while, looking at like 6+ years, which is pretty cool, and those are great. Those kind of make sense to, end because it's been so long. But some of these have only lasted anywhere from a few months to maybe a year or two. 75 is a seriously concerning number. Now, a lot of these games are Japan exclusive. Quite a few of them are global, but most of them here only ever released in Japan. The reason behind that is Japanese players tend to lean towards gacha games more so than the rest of the world. In fact, about 50% of the mobile game profits for Square Enix are generated from Japan. I think it's only about 30% stem from the US. So this tells us that Square Enix has a little bit of a problem when it comes to developing mobile phone games that basically no one wants in the first place, because most of these ended due to not turning over enough profit. This is one of the major things that was looked at when the presidential takeover happened at Square Enix at the beginning of 2024. One of the new things that was enforced is to be a little bit more particular and selective on what projects the company is developing. Square Enix's new approach now is to only sink time into things that make sense to be developed. So a lot of this mobile game garbage, I think, will probably not end up seeing ever again. This is a very, very dark period in Square Enix's history, just looking at how many mobile phone games are in this graveyard. And it's probably why right now there are only 2 mobile phone games that are currently in development for Square Enix that are of a certain quality, that look pretty good considering it's a mobile phone game, which is both Final Fantasy XIV Mobile and Kingdom Hearts Missing Link. These are 2 games that should see some level of success, especially looking at Final Fantasy XIV, given the amount of time that's spent on the development of these games, and that they are coming from 2 pretty popular fan bases. But it's not always the popularity of a fan base that guarantees the success of these mobile games, because within this list, there are a ton of Final Fantasy games. The really sad thing about a lot of these games, though, is that they simply get closed with no other means of being able to access them. The service is ended forever and no offline version is developed. And this is especially important for games that actually have mobile installments that are integral to the narrative of the franchise they're coming from. I'm looking at you, Nier Reincarnation and Kingdom Hearts Union Cross. Union Cross is a really strange case because it actually did get an offline version when it ended service in 2022, and then randomly the offline version was just removed off all app stores last year for no real given reason. And these stories are incredibly important to these games. The only way to actually experience them now is to find a YouTube video, which is bonkers, because looking at Kingdom Hearts, the story that's told in Union Cross is going to be absolutely vital looking at Kingdom Hearts 4 and the future games that come after it. You would hope that the removal of UX offline hopefully alludes to Square Enix maybe working on a remake or a retelling of UX's story for some time in the future. Because right now, for any newcomer jumping into Kingdom Hearts 4, there is no official means of them being able to experience that story. I also think that it's important for offline versions to be developed, for the ones that make sense to be developed, especially for players who have sunken in thousands. And there are people out there that have sunk thousands and thousands of dollars into these games over the course of time, only for all of that money to disappear before their eyes when a service ends. This is the nature of gacha games. Basically, you are throwing money into what is eventually going to be a dead service, and this is why it's hard to throw money at these games, though still, knowing this, it doesn't actually stop people. This is why I find it incredibly hard to sink money into these mobile phone games, because it's like, well, the service is just going to end in like a few years. I mean, especially if it's coming from Square Enix, like, do I want to do this? No, I'd be better off just rolling my money up into a cigarette and smoking it. Although doing that, I get lung damage. At least throwing money at Square Enix's mobile phone games, I'm not going to get lung damage, so maybe not that, but you know what I mean. I'd rather buy like several thousand chicken drumsticks than sink money into these things. Whereas I'd rather throw money into services like Fortnite or maybe Overwatch, because at least I know that those services are here to stay for many years to come. It sort of comes down to, like, if you find enjoyment in investing your money into games like this, where you know it's incredibly temporary, but you get, you know, a level of enjoyment out of it, then you kind of can't judge people, like let people do what they want with their money, but like logically looking at this, it's like, wow, that's like, I don't know, that's stupid to me. Even though I know that I will be spending money on Missing Link, it's ridiculous. It's this double-edged sword of like addiction to a certain franchise. Square Enix are quite literally taking advantage of our passion. How dare they? I do have to wonder though if Square Enix are taking extra time with Kingdom Hearts Missing Link to ensure that a good bulk amount of content is there available for when the game in the service launches and for the foreseeable future, just looking at Square Enix's very long, very concerning history with mobile phone games. There is absolutely, though, something going on with Kingdom Hearts Missing Link, and I don't think it's in the realm of this is good, because a mobile game, while yes, it's slightly more ambitious than their previous ones, really shouldn't be taking this long and shouldn't be going through this many delays. Remember that Missing Link was announced back in 2022. We're almost halfway through 2025 and we still don't know when it's coming out. Either a massive rework of a particular system has taken place, or they really do want to ensure that this is something special. However, because now there are significantly less Square Enix mobile games and the company does want to focus on proper quality, I would say that this chapter of Square Enix is coming to a close. That being said though, I would still be cautious about any Square Enix mobile services that continue to release. Just be careful when it comes to chucking money into these titles, and know that eventually these services are going to end. Especially for something like Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis, there's only so much story that they can tell in that game, and that at some point that story will come to an end, and inevitably that service will close. And like all of Square Enix's other mobile games, you can spend a seriously ridiculous amount of money on that game. But hey, if you get a kick out of it, more power to you. I wanted to bring this to your attention just to give you a better idea as to how the mobile side of Square Enix's games is kind of operating. It's not great, and I would be very cautious surrounding any of their mobile phone titles. These really are set up to be cash generators like almost every other mobile game out there. Thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. Be sure to slap that like button as it helps me out a lot. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, a big thank you to my wonderful patrons. I hope you're all having a fantastic day, and we'll talk again real soon.